It's 8:29. I'm going to entertain a motion to come out of the closed meeting. So if that, I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Hatfield, second by Councilmember Hubbard to come out of the closed meeting. And now I have to read this. The council now returns.
Take the vote.
Oh, sorry. I do that all the time. Forget the vote. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Now I'm going to read a narrative to return from to an open meeting from a closed meeting. The council now returns to an open meeting after discussing matters subject to attorney-client privileges as permitted by Minnesota Statute 13D-05 Subdivision 3, B as in boy, regarding the litigation between William B. Schallow et al. And the city of Chaska. Right, so we're back at 8:30, and I can get back on schedule here. All right, we are on item number 9, which is consent items. Again, these are items that need voting, but not necessarily discussion, but any and all can be discussed if anyone has anything they'd like to bring up. With that, anybody have any comments or questions or concerns? Matt, I have one on the UARW. Is there, in English, is there anything that's of concern? That's a lot of paper.
Yeah. So basically the AUAR is required as when you have a development that large to be able to go through. The only two things, and they were very minor, that were comments of things coming out of the AUAR is that they have to do an archaeological, what they call phase 1 of the site, where they basically go in and make sure that there's no archaeological issues. There really shouldn't be, because all that land has been developed in between there, so that's already been done in that area. Second one is that there's a small sliver of land that shows up in our comp plan as being greenbelt. That's part of their plan. We've already talked with the Met Council about this. There's actually more green space that will end up in that development because of the buffers that we have in that than there would have been under the traditional plan. So they said we can go through just an administrative process, but we still have to go through the process of a comp plan amendment with the Met Council as part of that. So both of them we consider pretty minor. The rest is basically saying that they meet all the standards of environmental review. I will say, as far as timing on that, they're planning on coming back to the March meeting for their preliminary, and they plan on having another neighborhood meeting is what they've told us prior to that, since it's been so long since the neighborhood's seen that. And one of the things that they'll have for the neighborhood at that point is they're going to be doing a noise analysis so that they have that information when they get together with the neighborhood.
Those are generally, there is no noise.
Yeah, but
the coolers and the chillers,
yeah,
right?
the thing that, and I know you asked me the question way back when there was a news article in the Star Tribune in Glencoe about a cryptocurrency data center and how much noise it made. Cryptocurrency data centers are extremely noisy, and the reason that they are is because they're not within a building. They usually sit out in sort of a storage container, almost like one of those shipping container type of things. And so some people, there might be some people that look at that and say, well, geez, isn't a data center noisy? It's just better just to show them what information there is. This is more like a data center, like the UHG data center.
Well, and the nice thing is we have other.
Yep, so we can point to that stuff. But it's a question that oftentimes comes up when data centers are being built. So they'd rather just have that as part of their neighborhood.
Well, I'm sure it's still the large building, not the multiple buildings, right?
They haven't shared with us exactly the direction they're going to go. My sense is that they're probably going to look at 2 buildings instead of 1.
Oh, okay. But I can see as a resident, anyone would be nervous if they knew that there was a 1.8 million square foot building coming.
Yeah.
It just, sets up flags, but.
Yeah. But they've been, they had that neighborhood meeting and got back with renderings to neighbors, and my impression is of any of the development groups that we've had come through in the last couple of years, they've done the best of being in contact with the neighbors and providing them information when they ask for it and stuff. So.
I've learned a few times down the road on other projects is
And, I mean, these are all good signs that that project's moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I never see a project
Right.
happen until it
No.
actually goes in the ground. They still, they're still working to get their end user, for the building, which that's really the thing that'll drive it forward. But I'm sure they're competing with other people, and they want to have it as far along as possible
Right.
in the process. So.
Okay.
But I will say that we've worked with them from the electric utilities standpoint, and we have a special rate that's geared towards large data centers like that I think, makes it very attractive for them. So I think we've put in place everything that makes it an attractive site, so.
Okay. And they're just still at a purchase agreement situation?
Yeah, so they've put some money down on it, but they're still sort of in the option phase.
All right, anyone else have any comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve consent.
motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Grau,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hatfield to approve consent. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. All right, we move into 10A, adopt resolution 2023-3 approving a development agreement with Lariat Companies at Chaska Building Center.
Mayor and Councilmember, this item is something that's related to approval of the redevelopment of the remainder of the Chaska Building Center site in between Formicote and Cuzzies. So it's exciting to see this moving forward. I'll turn it over to Elise, who can talk about some of the specifics in this development agreement.
Mayor and council members, as Matt indicated, this is basically the last piece of the puzzle for this particular redevelopment site. Earlier, I was going to say earlier this year, but in 2022, you approved the site and building plans to move forward with about a 41,000 square foot multi-tenant building. And this is geared toward smaller businesses looking to grow, that sort of thing. So actually this project on the redevelopment side of things has been worked on since the middle of 2021, and you actually approved a letter of intent with Lariat Companies back at that time. So really now it's taking that and formally putting it into a redevelopment agreement. I will just preview, you will also see this at the EDA meeting with slightly different approvals that are needed at the EDA because the EDA owns the site. So just to kind of at a high level, the major points of the redevelopment agreement is that Lariat Companies will pay just over $243,000 for the site. This is how the site was marketed, was $1.50 a square foot, so this price is equivalent to that. To support the tax increment financing, which has already been put into place on the entire site, so this is the third portion of it. They agree that as of January 2nd, 2024, the minimum market value to be assessed to the property will be $5.8 million. This is a number that we received recently from Carver County Assessor's Office, and this is just to ensure that we can pay our obligations on those TIF notes. The Chaska EDA agrees to pay Bremer Bank, who actually has the contract for deed with us, $495,000, just over that amount. That difference between the sales price that we are getting from Lariat Companies and this price that we are paying to Bremer Bank, that gap is covered with tax increment financing. Additionally, we will be waiving the development fees for the water area, the sanitary sewer area, the stormwater area, parkland dedication, and trails. All that was laid out in that letter of intent that you agreed to.
One of the reasons I'll point out for that is when we're dealing with a property that was already platted, theoretically at some point in time, they've already paid those fees. And so if you're dealing with a greenfield site that has never been platted before, those automatically have fees. If you're dealing with one that's already been something before, theoretically, they've already paid those in the past, and so the site shouldn't have to pay it twice.
Okay, so say, I didn't quite remember all that, but
Yeah.
now that makes sense.
One new item that has been added since the letter of intent was to repave Fire Lane within 6 months after project completion, and this was brought forward to us by the developer requesting that. If you've been out on Fire Lane, we've done some work on it, but they are seeking afterwards to have us repave that. And then additionally, kind of key dates here, that the closing would happen no later than June 15th of this year, and that they would begin construction by June 30th. I will note that we have heard that they are looking to close sooner than that. We don't have an exact date set yet, but they would be looking to close sometime this spring. So our staff recommendation, this has been many years in the making. It really supports the vision you've outlined in your strategic visioning, and that it will be also adding jobs into the downtown area. So with that, we are recommending that you adopt Resolution 2023-3 approving a development agreement with Lariat companies. And again, the EDA will be acting on similar but slightly different items at your meeting later on.
The only other note I'll put in here is just a nod to Bremer Bank in this whole deal, because you can imagine when they first took over the site, there was quite a liability that existed on that site. And, we got in and said, well, we can market this site for $1.50 a square foot. Well, $1.50 a square foot might not cover all the obligations around that site. So where the flexibility has had to be is with the bank on how much they'll accept that site to release the mortgage on it. And so that's where they've had to come down multiple times on that, just to work with us. So appreciate Bremer Bank being at the table in that process. That's really what allowed us to put this together.
Yeah, I agree with kind of what Elise was talking about, is that this has been a long process trying to get that developed out, and I'm just happy to see it finally moving forward. I know Nate tried. I'm glad you could finally get it done, Elise.
Yeah, no kidding.
Remind him of
You're here
that.
for a few months and you get it done.
Yeah,
Nate,
exactly.
geez.
Nate, what, he spent 12 years on it?
He's watching at home.
Yeah, he is. He's like, ooh.
Hi, Nate. But, no, it's good to see, and I really think that this is a business that I'm just thinking will really do well. This is just, a lot of small businesses need places just like this.
It is the thing we are lacking in not only our town, but around the area.
Yeah, I mean, it just, yeah. And, all it does is make neighbors mad because they start piling more stuff up in their contractors, start piling more stuff in their yards, and this gives them at least an option to go somewhere, so.
This fills up the last of the Chaska building center site, correct?
Yep.
Which is nice, because I know that this has been a long time in coming, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, and the other question I have is the site cleanup and stuff, that's already been done. That's what
Yeah.
we already did.
We have to reimburse ourselves for it,
Right.
though.
No,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't another 300, but I was gonna say, I thought we did all that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Just like I say, glad to see it move forward.
Very exciting.
Okay.
Well, and I think, to me, the great thing is we accomplished getting jobs down there, reusing the site, and at the end, the job was to try to do it breaking even with stuff, so that we're not making money, but we're not losing money.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it took a while, but it ended up where we wanted it to be.
All right, what's your pleasures?
I move to adopt resolution 2023-3 approving a development agreement with the Lariat companies and Chaska EDA for the Chaska Building Center redevelopment project.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. And I'll just shorten that, adopt resolution 2023-3 approving development agreement with Lariat for the Chaska Building Center redevelopment. And EDA, they're at that. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to item 10B, council committee assignments.
Mayor and Councilmember, we put this on discussion because, we didn't know if you guys wanted to change things up or not. So, we put down what the current, who is serving in the different roles. I think the only one that's new on here, and it's because of Councilmember Wong's involvement, is a Suburban Transit Association. And he has been serving as a primary, but I know that they've requested that there be a secondary actually appointed to that too, in case Councilmember Wong isn't able to be a part of it. We're not putting this because we anticipate you guys want to change, but we also don't want to assume that you don't want to change. So you could just take the slate as is, and that's fine, but we just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to talk about it.
So the only change I request on that one is just to say instead of secondary, change to alternate, because there may be cases where like, where staff maybe, if you're not attending and I'm not attending, then like Matt could be an alternate there, so that way, you're not on them to always have to come every time that I'm not in.
Okay.
Is that
Yep,
fair?
that
Okay.
works for me.
Yep,
You want to change that? Have Denise change that then?
Yes.
yep.
How come you don't have all my committees? What are you laughing
It's
about?
like somebody doesn't do anything around
You
here.
don't do nothing.
Apparently I do nothing.
That is kind of what I thought when I looked at it. I was like, wow.
Apparently I do nothing. Pretty good gig.
I was laughing because it looked like I did a lot, but the Carver County Elected Leaders Group only meets once every 2 months, or, and then the Mental Health Task Force, they haven't met since the opening of the Steiner Kelting building back in 2021, I think. So I don't know, I guess I'm still on that committee?
Yeah, they
but
haven't told us that it's not
Okay.
there still, so,
I didn't think that existed anymore,
yeah.
but.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issues. I've had some difficulty at times attending the Community Education Board because they've moved their meetings around, and sometimes they're right in the middle of the day, and working a full-time job makes it hard to work in the middle of the day sometimes. But I continue to follow their notes, and they try to do it over the lunch, so sometimes that works for my lunch as well, and sometimes it doesn't, so. But I think they'll have more regularity, because that group last year-ish, because they had leadership change and everything like that too. So I think they're still trying to kind of get a cadence of what's going on, so I have no issue with that. And I do enjoy it because I am a user of some of those things too, so.
Who is the chair of that? Is it
It's-
Community Ed, Rick?
Yeah, yep. So yeah, that's why, because that position was open, filled, reopened. That's why there
Yeah,
was,
she
oh,
left the.
that's
yeah.
why I had for, I think, it's been filled now for 6 months, maybe the last year, but
About a year.
for a period of time, we weren't meeting because there was some that needed to be filled.
Okay. So were these, are all good then? Then I would entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the council
Committee assignments.
committee assignments.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hubbard,
Second.
second by Councilmember Grau to approve the council committee assignments. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. All right, that's it on action item. Bills. Anybody got a question on a bill?
I have 2 questions. Page 1, there's a one for advanced systems integration that showed replace overhead projector, and I'm assuming that was for the event center.
Yep, that was one of the capital improvements that we had in that, so.
Yeah, and so I know that, so the event center was 2017, 2016 is when it opened. right?
16.
2016, so that lasted, what, like 8 years, right? Or 7 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
is the new projector supposed to have a longer lifespan, or is it? It's like every
No,
7 years?
it actually lasted the life of it. I will say that the quality of the projector that we got is much better this time around,
Yeah.
because the thing I think we learned through, especially with all the windows in that facility, is that the clarity of it was not great. So I think that's pretty typical of the length that those last, but the quality is better in this one.
So in terms of like an ongoing, maintenance of that long term, this is like, that $20,000 cost, like once every 6 to 8 years is probably is typical.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. And then the second question I have is, on the Hazeltine gates, there's a $14,000 for parking lot rental, but I'm assuming that's for the parking for the loop in part 30?
It is now, so the way the agreement works with the Goodman Group or Hazeltine Gates LLC is that as soon as the course opens, that parking lot becomes free to us. The course hasn't opened yet, and so we still owe it until that course actually opens. I will say though that the Goodman Group, who owns that building, over this last year has made a $100,000 contribution towards the clubhouse. So even though we're paying money, they have also contributed money to that too. But the agreement says that stops as soon as the course opens.
Okay, which we're planning on this spring because it was ready last fall.
Yep.
Right? So from that perspective, and I think it's kind of like that, taxpayer lens is like, well, we're still paying money for parking that no one was using in the last 2 years.
Well, we've been using it for staging for our construction.
Okay, so from that perspective,
Yep.
okay, so we did get value from
Yep.
that use of that space, but just for construction, not
Yep.
necessarily actually.
Not for people
not
parking, but
people.
for staging our construction, we used it.
Yeah, and then now that it'll be open this spring, then that ends because they effectively donated that.
Yep.
Right, okay.
And that goes for, I think it's like 50 years. I think it goes to like 2070 something.
Okay.
So.
If any of us are still in
I was gonna
California,
say, I don't plan on probably being here, and so.
sounds good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I've got. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, anyone else? Motion to pay the bills?
So moved?
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hatfield to pay the bills. Discussion. Elise?
Councilmember Hatfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Yes.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Councilmember Grau?
Aye.
Mayor Winchell?
Yes. All right, moves us to other business. Councilmember Hatfield.
I just had a couple of events coming up to share. This coming Monday is the MLK breakfast. And that's always a really, really nice event. The Human Rights Commission does an amazing job. They put a lot of time and effort and care and intentionality into it. So that is is it 8 a.m. or 8:30?
8.
8 a.m. at the Chaska Event Center, and everyone can come. So that's a great event. And then Coffee with a Cup next Thursday at 9 at Caribou. And the food distribution is on the 26th. Weird, usually those are the same day, but they're not this time. So food distribution on the 26th at the normal spot at noon. And yeah, I don't really have anything else.
Okay. Councilmember Grau.
Just was for the sake of appreciation and just understanding for those millions of people that watch these at home. Snow removal in the city, just kind of give us a perspective of hours and time and effort that goes into when you have a top 10 snow, event over the course of 2 days. That puts you on the spot a little bit here. 'Cause
Yeah,
I appreciate it, but I want to make sure the recognition gets there, as well as people understand, like, it takes a lot of work to get that snow taken
Well,
care of.
and particularly in this one because it's stretched out for so long. And so, because each burst of that snow created issues. There was a lot of snow in like 3 different bursts there. So during the course of that time, they went out for at least 2 full plows a day, which a full plow, let's say 7 hours to do a full plow, and that includes getting the trails cleared too, because if you let that stuff pile up too much, it just becomes difficult to get off after that. But then, once the snowstorm ends, then they have to come back for the nights to be able to haul the snow because the piles just are unmanageable. And Kevin, I think, mentioned at the beginning that we had enough snow that they removed just in the first operation to fill most of the MSB building. That's not where they put it, but they put it down at the athletic park, and they actually have one more night of snow removal they need to do tonight for areas that they weren't able to get the snow removed. And like on Friday morning, typically they'd be done at like, say, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I had an earlier meeting that day, so it's like 7:15, they still had snow pushed out into the middle of the roads, taking that out. So, it took them a long time to get it removed. And then they sort of strategically kept the areas so that they could try to limit the overtime and give people some break because they were pretty tired. So they will do that tonight. They do that during the night, and then later on in the week, they'll go and sort of touch up the areas like sightline issues and stuff that might exist at corners, just to make sure that those areas are all cleaned up and, deal with, trying to take away any hazards that way.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I appreciate that.
So yeah, it was definitely a full week effort that they put into that.
Okay. So, yeah, I just want to appreciate that and make sure people understand the level of work that goes into that piece too.
Yeah, they're pretty tired by the end of something like that.
Definitely. The second thing actually got me thinking, the events of last week with DeMar Hamlin and the Buffalo Bills player, got me thinking a little bit with AEDs in the city. So I actually know of it was a younger brother of one of the kids I play with in a baseball game, actually got beamed in the chest, trotted down to first base and collapsed. And
Which is actually the number one way that injury
correct.
happens.
So that brings me to this point is I don't think any of our baseball fields have any AEDs
I don't think so.
location. So
We have them in all of our public buildings, not there.
yeah, so that, I guess I'd like to maybe see that get looked into. One, I think we've had funding maybe and get grant money for AEDs. I think I've seen that sometimes. But I'd be curious to see if there's a lot of potential logistical challenges of having AEDs at baseball fields potentially, but there are locked boxes with other equipment. Because that's actually, like I said, it's passionate to me because I know someone that it happened to. I was, because Christina, my wife, asked that question. Like, actually, baseball is actually the more common. Like, they sell Under Armour shirts that have extra padding plates on your chest. You teach kids to turn your back when you get beamed, not open up for that reason, because the ball could hit.
That and lacrosse are the two biggest ones.
So like there too, you could extend it, so it's not, emphasizing more the sports that I'm familiar with. But it just got me thinking, because and I don't think that's uncommon. I was at a lot of baseball fields over the last summer, and I don't see them anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. So it'd be an opportunity for Chaska to look at that. I'd be curious, because to your point, it is one of the more common places, and the response of those trainers and having an AED on site realistically saved that man's life. And so, having that, and if, obviously if there's grants that can help us, purchase those, and I think, like I said, maybe it's through the fire department, they had a grant.
I think we got it through Ridgeview originally. I think that was where the grants came from.
I'd be curious to look into that. I'd be curious.
That fire did a bunch too.
Oh, you're right. Yep, you're right.
The thing about them outside is they're not real good in the elements.
Yeah, I know, again, I understand the logistical challenges of it, and so I'm not saying.
I would tell you what's more important than that is probably what saved that young man's life is CPR and knowing what to do, because if a lot of people aren't gonna do CPR, they're probably not gonna use an AED. So, in my opinion, knowing CPR is far more important than having the AED, because they can be there till the squads arrive, fire arrives, ambulance arrives, whoever it might be. But I would say that, and if you guys are on Facebook and you have Chaska Fire, look at the video that Mike Janander put out. Mike Janander was a retired Chaska firefighter. He's a paramedic with MedFire right now, I think MedFire. But he just did a real brief showing you how to do CPR, but also how to use an AED. But a lot of times people, they don't know CPR, they're not gonna touch a AED.
Yeah, I just think, like I said, like you could, again, I understand that, and I appreciate because you have some knowledge and perspective of that, because I do, again, I think that's probably my gut reaction of why you see them at basketball courts, but not at baseball fields, because of the
Inside.
inside
It's an
pieces,
element,
right? But be curious to explore, because like I think if you went out and if you could figure a way, could you, coaches of association teams already have different levels of concussion training, as an example. You could teach someone an AED. I don't know I do know CPR, I guess, somewhat. I was licensed at one time, not anymore. But I would, I mean, like me, just as me, AEDs, generally speaking, from my interaction with them, tell you exactly what to do. Your point, you gotta overcome that hurdle of, I feel uncomfortable. I'm just curious. Like I said, it just
What
made
it'll
me
do
think
if it
about
does, if a shock's not advised, it'll tell you to start CPR.
Yeah.
So if you don't know
correct, it does.
CPR,
Yep.
you're kinda,
Yeah, I'm just curious, because it's just one of those things
Yeah,
where
no,
I'm aware of it.
we can check into that and, whether or not, putting them in shelters and only having them there during the summertime. I mean, it might be something like that. I will tell you, at the community center, and we had this person come up to the fire station, but we had 2 lifeguards that utilized AED and CPR and saved a guy that went into cardiac arrest, not because he got hit, because he just went into cardiac arrest. So, and I think that may have happened at the golf course too, a while ago, but I
think so too. That
Yeah.
rings a bell.
yeah.
Which would be like a shelter, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be curious.
Yeah.
It got me thinking, because it was, it is one of those things where you're like, eye-opening in general, but like I said, I also had that personal experience with, so I knew this son, for the record, I should finish the story. There was a mom who was a nurse watching that game and knew exactly what had happened and administered CPR. And he was fine and he lived. But it's just one of those things, because that's the connection. It's like, yeah, that actually is, you would think in football with getting hit, but they have the shoulder pads go down, and it is more common with, I guess, small round balls being thrown at you situations where it occurs, but we're not prepared in that situation if we had. So I'd be curious.
Yeah, we can check it out.
Just something that,
Yep.
kind of spurred an idea, and, maybe the solution is where when the elements are allowed to be stored is also when people are using those facilities, so it could make some sense. So,
No, we'll check that out.
yeah, and then like I said, if we could get, however, and I think if there's a cost to it, I'm not signing the association up for anything, that's not my role or responsibility, but it'd be you could partner, is there grants, all that type of thing, to kind of look at that. It would just be interesting to see and maybe make Chaska unique, because when we have tournaments here, people see that type of thing too. So, okay, and that is all I have.
Let's start, Robert.
2 things. Piggyback off of snow removal. Big thank you to the public safety, the fire and police. They had to get around, and I'm sure service accidents and, calls, so big thank you to
And they
them.
get stuck themselves too.
And they get stuck themselves, and they're very important to be able to get there and get there fast and be able to respond, so. Big thank you for all those folks that, a lot of people stay home, advisedly so, when it's snowing. But, there are some that have to go anyway, so thank you. Other than that, so it's like an informal group. I mean, the Community of Belongings has a Chaska chapter. I think you've all been invited by Patrick Steig. I've attended here and there, and they are partnering with the YMCA, their Equity Innovation Center of Excellence, and I want to mention it because there's going to be 3 discussions that are going to happen, and the community is invited. I will get the information to you so you can pass it on to everybody else.
I know Marshall's been involved in those discussions
Yes,
too,
yep. So, yeah, certain city folks have, like Jen Wellivert, who's on our Human Rights Commission. I know she's been involved, and some other human rights commissioners, I think, have as well. But I just wanted to put this out there so you guys, if you want to mark this on your calendars, but I also get it to Matt. There's 3 three-part series, conversation, on how we, the people of Chaska, can work together to create our own story where everyone feels they're welcome, respected, safe, and where they belong. And so session 1 is Tuesday, January 24th. It's from 6:30 to 8:30. And there's a theme on that one, defining culture and historical context. Session 2 is on Tuesday, February 7th from 6:30 to 8:30. And that one is understanding ourselves and others. And session 3 is on Tuesday, February 21st from 6:30 to 8:30, and that's shifting the culture. All sessions will be held virtually. Participation in all sessions, all 3 of them is strongly encouraged, but attend what you can. There's like a link, and so I just wanted to kind of put that out there to the group. And
Is it only virtually? Or-
Yeah, it
okay.
looks like it. I think what they were gonna try to do, because they were kind of talking through the logistics, is they're gonna try to see if because Jody with the Chaska Library was on the last meetup, and they were gonna see if maybe they could reserve a space down in the library for folks that are, don't have the technology to be able to access so that they could still participate. But really kind of the idea is, you know, for people to be able to meet and to have the breakout groups and everything like that. And I just wanted to put that out there, 1, to let you guys know, but 2, it's really encouraged that like anybody can attend. So within your circles and organizations, to kind of have that. I think the Community as a Belonging group, it's a small group, but I think they're looking to kind of, I think, grow outwardly, not just like with folks like, you know, us that are within, you know, kind of city staff or within the council or within different key positions, you know, but also, you know, community members at large that, you know, maybe have a passion for this, and want to be a part of. So they're just kind of looking to grow it, but this is kind of part of that. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, but otherwise,
You don't have to
get
worry.
you.
Elise already beat you to the punch, so she already got it to me. I saw it
Really?
just pop up while you were talking.
Okay.
All right.
So anyways, no, that's and then I'm sure maybe you'll touch on it, Mayor, a little bit further. I would be remiss serving on the Chaska Fire Relief Board if I didn't mention that the fishing contest is February 4th from 1 to 3 down at the Fireman's Park. So anyways, I'm sure you'll get more details about it. But
I will say right now, ice is iffy.
But really?
Yeah.
Oh,
much
yeah, all that
snowpack.
Way
weight.
too much snowpack.
Oh.
And it's just not making any more ice, and right now there's about 7 inches of ice, so.
Does
There's a lot
does
of,
that impact, I'm assuming,
you know,
the,
people still
pond
selling
hockey?
raffles.
Yeah,
and
it's not
things,
gonna
so-
cancel the event, the pond hockey or the fishing contest. The fishing contest has sort of a off ice stuff. The pond hockey, still can clear stuff to still have some activities on ice, but they also, it's a community celebration too. So there'll still be stuff, it just might be different.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, anyways, that's it for me.
Okay.
Move on.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's cold.
So, thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. So, you know, just a past event I figured worth mentioning was actually a fun thing. Was it yesterday? The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was in town, so.
We saw it driving down the highway.
Yeah, so if you saw a giant vehicle that looked like an Oscar Mayer Wiener, it actually was. So, yes, and that was at Cub Foods yesterday afternoon, so, like, you know, we tried to get the word out, but it was one of those things that kind of last minute. And then also that we were just chatting about the Chaska pond hockey tournament, which is scheduled for Saturday, January 28th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Fireman's Park. But, you know, as we hear that the ice may be a little thin, so.
Yeah, this year too, to give a little insight into that whole event. So the Rotary is really taking that on as sort of like the major event that they want to do, and then partnering with us as a city. And the intent is to turn it into a major youth pond hockey event. There's only one other that occurs in the Twin Cities right now. It's over in Roseville, and it's Thanksgiving weekend. And they attract thousands of kids, and they come from all over the metro area and some outstate areas. But to have this be sort of like Fire and Ice is in the summer, where you have a bonspiel and they have the community celebration, where this ends up being sort of the bonspiel ends up being the pond hockey on ice, and then you have the community festival that goes with it, and then the intent that Rotary has with like, you know, all the registrations from the teams for the event and the proceeds is to go towards major community projects. And so the first one they're focusing on is the Miracle League field, but to use that as something that's ongoing every year that they can put towards major community efforts.
Sounds good.
How does the ice work over Thanksgiving?
In Roseville, they have the oval. It's a man-made ice.
Okay, that was the natural.
I was thinking the same thing, I'm
I
going,
was like, how does that work?
Yeah,
That would
no,
not
they,
work here.
That's part of the fun is kind of seeing
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's not really a pond when you're on an ice rink.
The lights,
That was kind of-
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So that's the way it works.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
And so I had a constituent ask, and this was a while back, and you know, the ice fishing contest for Fireman's Park was kind of brought up that question again. I thought it's worth like putting it out there. Was that when a constituent said, well, why do we need to have the fireman's ice fishing contest? But like, aren't we funding all the things that the fire department needs? Because in theory, he said, and this was his perspective, is I'd be happy to pay more taxes so the fire department didn't have to do that, right? So I know there's a reason why.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it's really traditionally been used for in the past, it's the Relief Association, it's not the city.
Right.
And so it'll go towards, funding those types of things that the Relief Association does as an organization themselves. But also it's been sort of those things that maybe are sort of those extras that maybe if it came down to a budget decision, you'd say maybe weren't absolutely needed, but something that enhances our service.
Yep.
And so that's sort of traditionally the type of stuff that's been used to acquire is sort of falls into that category. I don't know, Mark, you were on the fire department for a long
AEDs at
time.
baseball fields?
Yeah, you were on the fire department a long time. Is that a good?
Well, and a lot of that is just about tradition.
Yeah.
It's like, must be probably approaching, whatever, we're over 60
65
years.
years,
Yeah.
65.
So it's, part of it is that it was, and initially it was done to fund the ambulance that was owned by the fire department, not city. And it, some of the funding is, yes, it's used for things that aren't always budgetary items that, that enhances, but it makes recruitment better and things like that are some of the things. And now, could that be a budget item? Yes.
It could be.
But they're using the budget items for things that they need for the budget, So that's what most of that is used for, is the stuff
Can I
like that.
give like some actual examples too, since I serve on the board? So, for example, they have a couple of scholarships that they give, and so that helps fund that. They have Chaska Fire teddy bears, so that they give to children when they respond to calls. They also participate in like smaller departments, like the softball tournaments and things like that. So there's entry fees and things like that associated with it. And then the Class A certification, is that one of them that's on there, Mark? Like,
You're thinking of, the Class A uniforms?
oh, the uniforms, thank you. Yeah, I sure-handed that. So like things like
And that's for
uniforms
the-
for retired
for
members.
retired members.
Yes, so these are all extra expenditures that obviously aren't in the city budget. So hopefully that helps put a little bit of,
It's not for me.
oh,
I knew
for your
this.
constituents though, like
Yes.
that you can respond
Yeah.
back to them
Yeah.
as far as with that.
And
as a
I
concern.
think but I kind of want to just get it out there because, like some of the other things that, they talk about were like, there's also the fire departments, the banquets and some of the family
The
activities.
banquets as well.
Because, things that we, as a city, for example, we can't like buy alcohol with public money, right? So that's part of the banquet, or something like that, it's things that we might not be able to do under the public, as a public entity, that we can provide to, families and to benefit the fire department as a whole, are things that, those dollars should go towards.
Well, and it's, because they are, paid on call, not full-time employees, it's, how do you provide sort of a thank you without, using dollars that we can't use from the city to do that.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So I think this is really, I think it's great to just, put that out there, because something we don't really talk about it very much. But, I think that, if what, I always feel like that if one constituent asks, there's probably a lot more who didn't ask but are thinking the same thing, so.
Yeah, no.
So, and then the last item that I've got is that if you look in their packets, if you can get to it online, there should be a recap of the Chaska Hawks, the January from Chaska High School, Principal Bach and Cindy from the activities have just put that together and just listed a few, listed some things.
website.
It's on the website. Some things, that were, things that are notable, but I just want to get that out there for, for the public. Just to give some credit to, students and the staff for, getting, for a lot of these accomplishments, both in the activities and athletic side. So it's out there. I don't want to necessarily go through all of them, but just to let everyone know, thank you very much for all the, the work out that, the great work that they're doing at the high school and all through the district. Also, a shout out to the police and fire for dealing with all of that snow over there, because I know that's a lot. And also shout out to the public works for clearing all the snow, because I know it's a huge job. And having sat with police, fire, and public works, and doing the job out there, it's amazing what the teams all do out there on a day-to-day basis that often goes unseen. So thank you very much, very appreciated.
They're doing stone tonight, and I've never been so excited in my life. Those are the things you get excited about when you're in your 30s. They're clearing my boulevard. I saw the
maybe you
signs
should
this
go out and ask
morning.
if you could ride with them.
I didn't have to drive to Egan at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I would consider that. But also, I can bring them hot chocolate and cookies at midnight. That would be like the same thing, though. I should be in bed. Anyways, okay.
So I'm good. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Elise?
The only thing I was going to mention, and Councilmember Hatfield did, was the MLK breakfast on Monday. And there's a great speaker lined up this year, Dr. Timothy Berry, and come find out who the Human Rights Award winner is for the year.
Do we know the nominees, or don't we post that?
We don't post it.
Okay.
If we did, then people might guess and get out the wrong word. I don't know.
Jake? I'll get you out of that, Matt.
Yeah.
Nothing for you today.
Matt?
Just two things, reminder, their meeting schedules are all messed up in January and February. So the 23rd, we will have a meeting, we'll have the interviews before. The 30th, we will have a meeting, because that's when we want to choose the architect for the public safety. We'll have the work session before on the naming rights, and then work session afterwards to talk about recap, bringing back on the issuing caps that was brought up before. And then in February, then we have the first and the last Mondays of the
6th and the 27th.
6th and the 27th.
Took all my thunder away.
Yeah, well, there you go. The only other thing I'll mention, I feel weird even mentioning it, but I want to congratulate my son and his team they're going to nationals this week for U18 curling, and so I'll be gone with him second half of the week, but they made it in during Christmas break and are going out to try to defend their title. So
Where?
Boulder, Colorado.
Fun.
So,
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Keep those photos if you want there.
Oh, there you go. That's
All
all
right.
I
All right, a couple things. I don't think we ever talked about it. Santa Parade was pulled off again this year and went very well. It was cold night, a little snowy, but it's still amazing to see all the people that come out and are excited and look forward to that. So I think that is something that's going to continue to build and be bigger and better every year. I think we're pretty set on a date now. We got Santa in a new ride now, so that makes things even a little better. So we don't have to worry about him getting so cold. Even though Santa's supposed to be able to handle that. But it's such a fun event, and, everybody has a little piece of it, and helps out. And this year, the Public Works crew had a big piece of it, and they were all excited and had fun getting things ready, so, yeah, so that's just something that, you know, we haven't had a meeting since then, and I just think that that's always worth having a conversation about, so.
You're on the news.
And, yeah, and Channel 9 did a really, really nice segment on it, I think.
Wait, Santa was on there.
City had the year round.
Yeah, I knew you were talking about the city.
Yeah.
I knew that, but that was one, I think they were not real sure of the article, and then started following the parade route around, and I think that they really enjoyed themselves, I heard.
They were the car following it?
They they went to multiple locations throughout.
Okay,
the
there was
They
a
were-
vehicle following the parade, and I just stood there staring
By
at them.
you, no.
Okay. They must have just been random people, because I
Yeah,
just
that
stood there
had to be
staring at them, waiting for them, because it was like a Ford Explorer, so I didn't know if it was more police officers. So I just stood there staring at them with my phone, like this, because I was recording it, and then it was just random people, and I was like, sorry, and I like skedaddled back to my house.
No. But they followed the parade for a good hour and a half,
Yeah.
which is a long time, and I don't know, that photographer, at first, he looked like he was bored, and then later on, he looked like he was having fun.
Yeah.
So it was a great article by Channel 9.
Yeah.
Well, and then that same reporter ended up contacting Brian Jung and did a ride-along with them in the plow. I can't remember if it was a Christmas storm or this last storm last week. It must have been the Christmas storm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So many of them to choose from.
Yeah, I don't know.
She lives here in town.
Yeah.
But, yeah, actually, I was gonna go out in the truck this last storm, and I was gonna go meet the operator, and he called me, he goes, not this one. He didn't want anybody in the truck with him. He said it was just too hard to see,
Yeah.
so, but that's all right, there'll be others. It's always gonna snow. Always gonna snow. Speaking of snow, a couple of things that I'd like to talk about is obviously, you know, thanking everyone for taking care of it. And, you know, if you just put this a little bit in perspective, we got like a foot, you know, we can maybe say a little bit more. We maybe had 5-6 inches on the ground. Think about that in Buffalo, and they get 48 inches. Think about what it took to remove, you know, we're still talking about it, a storm from 5 days ago with 12 inches. And think about what that takes to get rid of that amount of snow is you know, pretty crazy. But what's happening out of these events now is that, one, and these are things to help yourself and to help some of our organization, is make sure you take a look if there's a hydrant close to your house and no one's cleaned it out. Those are such valuable moments that they need that if they're digging out a hydrant versus being able to go hook up. The second is for all of our emergency vehicles is be careful where you park on the streets. Don't park on a street and there's a car completely opposite you. One, fire trucks probably can't get through there. It's getting narrow enough that squad cars are gonna have time, but garbage trucks, school buses, all of that can't. Make sure you stagger parking as these roads have narrowed up. Like, Councilmember Hatfield said they're cleaning their boulevard because they're narrowing up, and that's a major road. But there's some of the, you know, neighborhood streets that they're not gonna come in there and take that snow out of there. It's just too much for them to do. But those are just a couple real simple things to look at when you park a car and think about that. In my days of working, I got caught in that, where you get, you know, mid-block and all of a sudden you can't get through. Now you gotta back up, and if it's snowing or whatever, and people see lights and they come out, and, you know, you just don't know. But those are a couple of real big things that after these big snowfalls that are important, if you can just think about that and, you know, do those things when you can. So I was out at Public Works, and when a phone call came in about a resident that was not happy, I never heard a resident say so many bad things about staff and things, so it was kind of disappointing to hear that. And I want people to understand that these plow operators aren't putting snow in your driveway and not this driveway. You know, it's just, people have to understand when it snows this much, it goes back to that 48 inches. How would you ever function in that, but it was really sad to hear that phone call, but in a good way, it was good that I did hear it, to know I was there. I've heard people go through it, but that was the most embarrassing rant that I think I've ever heard. And I think they've got that all squared away at this point, but it's kind of like, ask the question, don't come in yelling and making accusations of things that you might not even totally understand what happens in the snow removal. So I still think that our city does a tremendous job of snow removal and snow cleanup after the fact. I saw some things on the Nextdoor apps about local cities that were talking about snow plows knocking every garbage can over and garbage blowing everywhere and snow plows stuck in their front yards and all this and that. And to my knowledge, we didn't have any of that. Now, will a plow take up some sod sometimes in the front yard? Yeah, that happens. It's just hard to control where that is and things like that. So, I just hope that people are patient. It's not easy. When I talked to the plow operator, he said, it's just too hard to see. And he says, if you're there, I can't see where my wing is. So just think about that that's what they're going through too. It's not easy for the operators, and they're not doing anything intentionally to this house and not that house. Cul-de-sacs are a challenge and I think they've come up with a different way. I think they plow them all to the center now.
Yeah, that was
to
something they actually
eliminate
changed
that.
a couple of years ago when they met with some neighbors to talk about different alternatives, and so it's actually worked really well.
I mean, we're always looking for a way to do things better, and if there is, our public works crews have been really good, and Brian's good about making changes, Brian Jung. So I just think that I think about, they have a good operation here. Think about it as you leave the community and look in other communities and see what it's like and kind of compare. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see that our crews really do a nice job. So I just want to say thank you to all of them. And if you got a complaint, feel free to call in, but please be respectful. They're being respectful of you as well. So it goes both ways. So. Pond hockey, we already talked about. Are we doing the ice sculptures? Anybody heard?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Anybody got a date? Never mind, we'll get that soon.
There is a date. It's
that's-
a time.
It's
Do you remember the date?
It's usually the last weekend in January, which is the same would be the pond hockey.
It's in February. It's later February.
Oh, okay.
Mid to late
never mind.
February, but I'll confirm it.
That's all
then.
right, we got time, but I just was,
One of the things that we have talked about though, because again, this year is sort of a trial run for the pond hockey, is in the future to try to coordinate
We'll
those things.
come together, yep.
So that we
I
can
agree.
have all those events together.
yep. Okay. Perfect. What else? Oh, I'm gone the 23rd, so the new pro tem will have to take over, and I will miss tab, so you're gonna be able to make tab?
Yep.
So, I'm gone the 13th through the 23rd, 10 days. So, yeah, I think that's it. Last call?
And we have
And we have a short EDA meeting immediately following, so as soon as we're done, we'll go right into that. So, hearing no one else, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield, second by Councilmember Hubbard. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. They're adjourned. And we'll roll right into EDA. Start with Elise, we call roll.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Here.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Wong.
Here.
Commissioner Gra.
Here.
President Winchell.
Here. And I will call the meeting to order at 9:29. We'll do that. All right, adopting the agenda. If there are no corrections or additions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Gra,
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hubbard. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to item 4, approve previous meeting minutes from the December 19th, 2022 meeting. Again, if there are no corrections or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard,
Second?
second by Councilmember Wong, to approve previous meeting minutes from 12/19/22. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. Moves to item 5, discussion items related to the redevelopment of Chaska building site. So 5A, we got to hold a public hearing. This is a public hearing? Did I miss that?
Yeah, this will be a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
Commissioners, the item in front of you tonight is basically the exact same item as was on the city council meeting. The difference is because the EDA owns this property, we have to hold a public hearing to be able to sell the property. It's a statutory requirement. So you'll see that we have to have a public hearing to do that and formally accept the purchase agreement. Elise, is there anything else other than that?
No, the resolution is slightly different because it would allow the sale of the property to happen, approve the purchase agreement, and approve the development agreement, which you looked at. So that's all I have to add.
Oh, because I didn't see it on my agenda, but I see why. Okay. I got to click a little arrow. More arrows. All right. So we want to hold a public hearing first then? That's what we're doing?
Yeah, you have to hold a public hearing first and then consider adopting the
Okay,
resolution.
and we're holding the public hearing to see if there's anyone opposed to this sale. Okay. All right, any further discussion from up here first? Okay. All right, we will open the public hearing at 9:39. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on
31.
behalf? What?
9:31.
What did I say?
39.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 31.
We don't want to say you're 10 minutes unnecessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I looked at it, I can't believe I said it. Okay, thanks for the correction. 9:31, we will hold the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak on behalf of the sale of the land at the former Chaska Building Center site? There's nobody here. Kevin, anybody online? No. Okay, we will go to 9:32 and close the public hearing. And now do we have to do, is this adopting the resolution?
It'd be adopting the resolution.
Got goofy here. Okay, all right, so with that, we would adopt resolution 2023-4, which is basically the sale related to the Chaska Building Center site. Correct? Boss? Okay. Somebody want to make a motion, discussion?
All right, so moved.
Motion by Councilmember Gra.
Second.
Commissioner Gra. Second by Commissioner Wong to adopt resolution number EDA 2023-4. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Both same side. Motion carries. Anyone have other business? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hubbard,
Second.
second by Commissioner Gra to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. We are adjourned. Thanks. Have a great night.